The restaurant was one of those places where the lighting is so soft it feels like a secret, and the price of the appetizers could pay my rent for a week. We were there to celebrate my sister Cassandra's engagement to David, a man whose family tree was apparently made of solid gold and old money. The air smelled of expensive perfume, truffle oil, and the suffocating weight of my family's expectations. Everyone was there. My father, the prestigious surgeon who looked at everyone like they were a patient he didn't quite have time for. My mother, a high-ranking corporate executive who treated family dinners like board meetings where she was the CEO. My brother Owen, the stable financial analyst who viewed life through the lens of compound interest and risk management. And then, there was Cassandra, the marketing director, the golden child, the daughter whose every breath was treated like a stroke of genius. I sat at the far end of the long mahogany table, clutching my wine glass as if it were an anchor. I'm 32 years old, and my name is Jade. For 10 years, I have been a ghostwriter. I've written the blog posts you read on your lunch break, the marketing copy for products you didn't know you needed, and the articles that other people put their names on. In my family's eyes, I wasn't a professional. I was a typer. A creative weirdo. An unstable variable in their perfect, titled equation. The clink of a spoon against a crystal glass silenced the table. Cassandra stood up, her engagement ring catching the light and blinding me for a split second. She looked radiant, perfectly manicured, and utterly lethal. I wrote a formal toast. Cassandra began, her voice carrying that effortless confidence she had possessed since she was a toddler. But let's be honest. We're among family. Let's talk about the people who actually matter here tonight, instead of talking about Jade, because we all know no one really cares what she's doing anyway. The table didn't gasp. They laughed. It was a light, melodic sound, like wind chimes in a storm. I felt the heat crawl up my neck, a familiar burn of humiliation. I looked at my mother, hoping for a flicker of defense. Instead, she leaned over and patted my hand. "Don't be so sensitive, Jade," she whispered, her voice like silk over a blade. "She's just being honest, dear. You know how you are with your projects." I smiled. I forced my muscles to hold that expression until it felt like a mask. They had no idea. They had no clue that for 3 years, while I lived paycheck to paycheck and took their insults with a bowed head, I had been pouring my soul into a manuscript. While they were busy building lives on titles and social status, I was building a world. For years, I had been the family's cautionary tale. My father once told me, over a holiday dinner when I was 25, that a career in writing was like a hobby that forgot to grow up. "You need a title, Jade," he had said, swirling his scotch. "Something people can respect." I didn't have a title. I didn't have a corner office. I had a cramped apartment with a desk that wobbled and a laptop that stayed hot through the night. I worked different hours every week, ghosting for clients who needed someone behind the scenes to make them sound brilliant. I was the voice of CEOs, the wit of influencers, and the logic of entrepreneurs. I was everywhere, and yet, I was nowhere. Cassandra, however, was everywhere. She was the one they showed off at country club brunches. "Our Cassandra just landed the Miller account," they would beam. "She's a director now, you know." Owen was their rock, the son who never questioned the path laid out for him. And then there was me, the one who was figuring things out. But what they didn't know, what I had kept tucked away like a secret sin, was that 6 months ago, I had signed with one of the most powerful literary agents in New York. I had sent my manuscript under a pen name, terrified that my real name would carry the stench of unstable freelancer that my family had pinned on me. The agent didn't care about my family's titles. She cared about my prose. She sparked a bidding war among the big 5 publishing houses that lasted 4 days. By the time we sat down for that engagement dinner, my book was already in its 2nd printing before even hitting the shelves. It was projected to debut at number 1. I had a 6-figure advance sitting in a bank account my mother couldn't track, and a movie studio was already drafting a contract for the film rights. I could have told them. I could have stood up right then and there and shattered Cassandra's little moment. But I wanted to see how far they would go. I wanted to know if they would ever respect me for being Jade, the person, rather than Jade, the success. The weeks following the engagement dinner were a masterclass in exclusion. It started with the family group chat. I noticed the notifications had stopped. No more pictures of wedding dresses, no more updates on Owen's portfolio. I assumed it was a glitch until Owen accidentally sent me a screenshot intended for Cassandra. It was a thread titled Mountain Getaway, The Real Squad. They were planning a luxury vacation to the Swiss Alps. My father was paying for everyone except me. I texted my mom immediately. Why was I taken out of the main chat? I saw the screenshot, Mom. Her reply came minutes later, casual and dismissive. Oh, honey, we just started a new one for the people who can actually commit to the trip. You always have so much going on with your little projects, and we didn't think you could afford the airfare or the gear. We didn't want to make you feel bad by inviting you to something you can't pay for. I stared at the screen. I hadn't even been asked. I was a financial burden in their minds, a charity case they didn't want to carry. I never said I couldn't make it, I typed back. Well, it's a very expensive resort, Jade, she replied. Let's just focus on your writing for now, okay? Maybe next time. I put my phone down and felt a strange, cold peace wash over me. The bridge wasn't burning, it was being dismantled piece by piece by the very people who were supposed to keep it standing. The final straw came a month later at my father's birthday brunch. We were gathered in their sun-drenched dining room, surrounded by fresh pastries and the smell of expensive coffee. A distant cousin, someone I hadn't seen in years, turned to me with a kind smile. So, Jade, how is the writing going? Are you still doing the freelance thing? Before I could even open my mouth, Cassandra jumped in, her voice dripping with mock pity. She's still typing, as Dad calls it. You know, short blog posts for random websites. It's hard out there for people without a corporate structure. Owen chuckled from across the table. Jade, when are you going to get real? You're almost 33. You can't be a freelance creative forever. It's embarrassing for the family when people ask what you do. My father, who usually stayed out of these petty squabbles, finally looked up from his newspaper. I have to agree, Jade. Stability is the hallmark of a mature adult. You need a real job with a real title. Writing is a real job, I said, my voice shaking slightly, not with sadness, but with the sheer effort of holding back the truth. Cassandra laughed, a sharp, jagged sound. Maybe for people who actually publish books, Jade. But you've been talking about this novel for 3 years. At some point, you have to admit you're just a hobbyist. I apologized and left the table early. I sat in my car in their driveway and cried, but they weren't tears of grief. They were the last tears of the girl who cared what they thought. 2 weeks later, my mother called me. Her tone was bright and transactional, as if our last conversation hadn't happened. Jade, dear. Cassandra is finalizing her wedding invitations and she's having a bit of trouble with the wording. You know how to use words. Would you mind editing them for her? It'll only take you an hour or so. Just a quick favor for your sister. I felt a surge of cold fury. For free, Mom? You want me to do professional editorial work for free? She sounded genuinely shocked. It's for your sister's wedding. Family helps each other, Jade. Don't be selfish. I am a professional, Mom, I said firmly. I charge $50 an hour for editing. If Cassandra wants my expertise, she can pay my rate. The line went silent for a moment before my mother's voice turned ice cold. People think you're selfish because of this attitude, Jade. This is why you're struggling. You can't even help your own sister without asking for a handout. It's pathetic. I hung up. An hour later, Cassandra sent me a text. Thanks for nothing. I guess your job is more important than your family. Don't bother coming to the tasting next week. I didn't reply. I didn't need to. Because the next week wasn't about her tasting. It was about my launch. The release date of my book, titled The Ghost of the Gallery, arrived on a Tuesday. I had spent the weekend in a blur of nerves and excitement, working with my publicist, Rachel. Rachel had been my anchor for years, a woman who saw my talent when my own mother saw a project. By Wednesday morning, the book wasn't just selling, it was exploding. The secret pen name was the talk of the literary world. Every major news outlet was covering the story of the mystery bestseller. Then, the press release went out. My publisher and I had decided that the best way to launch the book was to reveal the face behind the name. My real name, Jade Thompson. The articles began to pop up everywhere. From ghostwriter to queen of the bestseller list, the Jade Thompson story. Pictures of me at a secret book signing, me in a sharp black dress, looking confident, looking successful, were plastered across Instagram and TikTok. I was in the middle of a live TV interview for a morning show when my phone began to melt down. I had it on vibrate in my pocket, and the buzzing was constant, a frantic, rhythmic plea for attention. When I finally walked off set and checked my notifications, I had 23 missed calls from my mother, 14 from Cassandra, and a string of texts from Owen. Cassandra, Jade. Is this a joke? Why didn't you tell us? This is a huge deal. Owen, I can't believe you kept this quiet. Well done, sis. We should celebrate. Mom, we are so incredibly proud of you, sweetheart. Please call us back right away. We want to host a party for you. Dad, I always knew you had it in you. Let's get dinner tonight. My treat. I stood in the green room of the studio, looking at their words. Proud. Always knew. The lies were so transparent they were almost funny. They weren't proud of me, they were proud of the number 1 next to my name. They were proud of the status I had finally achieved, the very thing they told me I'd never have. That night, I went on Instagram Live to thank my readers. I had over 50,000 people watching. I talked about the years of rejection, the late nights, and the people who helped me get here. I also want to thank the people who didn't believe in me, I said, looking directly into the camera lens, knowing my family was watching from their separate houses. You taught me that your approval doesn't determine my worth. You taught me that silence is the best response to cruelty. And to anyone out there working on something in secret because the people around you think you're unstable, keep going. Your success is your own. You don't owe it to anyone who didn't respect you when you were just a typer. The video went viral. Entertainment News picked it up with the headline, Best-selling author calls out toxic family in emotional live stream. A week later, I was on a major talk show. The host asked me, "Is your family celebrating with you now?" I smiled, a genuine, peaceful smile. "I wouldn't know," I said. "I haven't talked to them. I think I've finally found a group chat that actually matters." The crowd erupted in applause. My family tried everything. Cassandra sent a long, tearful email about how she was just joking at the dinner and that her wedding wouldn't be the same without me. My parents showed up at a book signing in Chicago, but my publicist, Rachel, had them quietly escorted away before they could reach the table. I didn't do it to be cruel. I did it because I realized that their love was conditional. It was based on my title, my bank account, and my ability to be shown off. But the people who were with me in the NYU dorms, the people who read my drafts when I was broke, and the readers who found themselves in my pages, those were the people who cared. Cassandra said no one cares what I do. It turns out, she was wrong. A lot of people care. Just not the ones I used to think I needed. And honestly, that is the best ending I could have ever written. If this story stirred something inside you, don't scroll away in silence. Tap like, it tells us these stories deserve to be told. Subscribe to Vengeful Goddess for unforgettable tales of betrayal, resilience, and justice, stories you won't hear anywhere else. Turn on the bell icon, so the next story reaches you the moment it drops. Your support keeps these voices alive. Because sometimes, revenge isn't loud, being heard is.